Senator Blackburn, always good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
I am always delighted to join you. Thank you so much.
You bet. All right, let's start with the big topic du jour today. The House is kicking off its budget. There's a little bit of question as to how this thing ends up. The House is passing one big, beautiful bill, as the president likes to say. Senator Graham, your colleague there, is passing a different bill that deals more with energy, defense, and immigration. Just in your mind, how does this thing play out?
We are praying for the House that they can get their budget document across the finish line. But Sean, the point is this. We are here to support the president's agenda. The American people sent a mandate. Secure the border, get crime under control, make certain we make the tax cuts permanent, restore our standing in the world, be sure our allies know they're an ally, our enemies fear us, and downsize this bloated government. Think about the taxpayer. And that's the mandate they sent. So we have to produce the savings that are necessary for President Trump to achieve his agenda and support that agenda. So whether it's one bill or 10 bills, the point is let's get the job done and let's do it as quickly as we possibly can. Let's get the Trump tax cuts from 2017 made permanent. Do that based on policy so that we don't need the offsets. And then let's use those savings and offset dollars to make certain that we do tax on tips and that we're addressing overtime pay and Social Security for our seniors. There are lots of things we can do. And I say to people all the time, they'll say, well, can you save $1 trillion? I'll say, wouldn't it be great if we could save $5 trillion and actually get this budget back under control?
Yeah, in my conversation with the president last night, he said that he thinks they're well over $1 trillion. I think that's great. When you talk to your colleagues, look, you've been a champion of fiscal responsibility and deficit spending and all this. But do you feel like your colleagues are on board with you in the Senate? Because I hate to say this, but I think a lot of people like to talk the talk. And then when it comes to the big votes, and the question is, will they be there when the big vote comes for savings?
My hope is that they're going to be there because this is what the American people want. And you're right, I have worked on this my entire political career with across the board spending cuts and removing programs that we do not need. And what we do once we do the DOGE cuts and go through rescissions and codify all of that, then Sean, we need to require every single secretary, every department, every agency to each year go in and save a 1%, 2%, 5%, 10% cut, a savings out of their department that goes back. Let's use that money to lower taxes, to pay down our national debt, and to get this fiscal house to get it under control. And when you look at the fact this is in my lifetime, the first time we have had the opportunity to do this. And we have a president of the United States in Donald J. Trump who is committed to making this happen. We should cut every ounce of fat we can cut. We should save every penny we can save. We should do this so that our children and grandchildren have a safe, sovereign nation, that we're not worried about the nation's debt. That would be an incredible legacy to leave our kids.
Absolutely. Speaker Johnson was talking about how Elon Musk is operating. I want to play you a little bit of what he had to say and get you to react.
And the Congress, who could have oversight. The problem is, for decades, as we know, we haven't been able to do that job well, because even though we requested the data and requested the insight, it was hidden. How many of you know that bureaucracy was not forthcoming, right? They're not transparent. That's the whole point. That's the problem. That's the deep state we talk about. So they were hiding from Congress. We didn't know that USAID was funding drag shows in Peru or whatever, transgender operas in Colombia or whatever, it's madness. But Elon has cracked the code. code. He is now inside the agencies. He's created these algorithms that are constantly crawling through the data, and as he told me in his office, the data doesn't lie. We're going to be able to get the information. We're going to be able to transform the way the federal government works at the end of this, and that is a very exciting prospect. It is truly a revolutionary moment for the nation.
Senator, you have a background in marketing and business, right? And I'm thinking to myself, there's not always a similarity between how the government operates and the business. But the reality is that if you were operating a business and didn't know all of these things were being funded, you would be outraged at the people that you were doing business with and in your company. And there's a difference between Congress approving stuff and the federal government hiding stuff from it. And that seems to be what Speaker Johnson is alluding to. If it wasn't for Elon Musk, I don't know that we would be finding out these things. And the question I have for you is this. How concerning is it for you as a leading member of the United States Senate that all this stuff was happening and being, frankly, hidden from the Congress?
Yes, and when we get to the bottom of this, Sean, this could end up to be the biggest financial crime ever in history. When you look at what some of these bureaucrats have done with this money. And as Speaker Johnson was saying, those of us that have worked on cutting waste, fraud, and removing abuse out of the system have repeatedly been stymied by the different agencies and by the different departments and not given the information. It has been almost impossible. But having the ability to go into these systems and algorithmically retrieve this information, they've not been able to put it in a memo, write a report, delay the report, say the report is getting into processing. The report will be delivered to you. Oh, we forgot. The secretary's on vacation. There will be a 2-week delay. And then you get a report that really doesn't get to the substance, and you have to start the ask again with the agency. The deep state is very well seated. I am so pleased that many of them are being removed. I think that as we go through this reshaping of the federal government and how we deliver services, that you're going to see a government that is much more responsive, that meets the needs of the citizens who qualify for benefits, and that we know that employees are showing up and that they're actual real employees. They're not ghost employees. And we are beginning to find out there have been quite a few ghost employees that have been paid by the U.S. taxpayer. And Sean, you have to remember that this is not government's money. This is the taxpayers' money. We, their elected representatives, are to be the stewards of those taxpayer dollars on their behalf.
Yeah, I was laughing when you're telling the story because I have a very similar view of how this works, which is we need to reduce the government. So let's create a plan and hire consultants who develop a PowerPoint that then has to go through an approval process that, by the way, it's too late now, so we need to start the process again. And the contract on savings expire. I mean, you're absolutely right. The way in which we have delayed any attempt to look at the government has been phenomenal. But when you talk to the people in Tennessee, one of the things that I hear, and I get it, is that, it's chaotic. And the answer that I give people is kind of a variation of yours, which is, okay, guys, we've tried it the other way for decades, and it never results in savings. So we're going to try it Elon's way this time. And you may not like it, but we also are $37 trillion in debt, $2 trillion a year, $100,000 per person. Maybe we have to look at this different. So when you talk to folks in Tennessee, what's the general reaction among people?
What the people want us to do, Tennesseans every day, and I did a telephone town hall the other day, and nearly every question was about one of two issues, the border or DOGE. And what they're saying is, we want to be a part of this. And here is where you need to be looking. We know of waste that is over here, or I've got a relative that works for this department. They talk about how much money gets wasted and how people don't come to work. And people, now there are issues that reach a tipping point, and this is one of those issues that has reached the tipping point, and people can see it with their own eyes. They see the waste.
Oh, I do. Yeah,
They can't get an answer from an agency, or they're working at a factory and OSHA comes in and makes them stop all the lines, shut everything down, and everybody stand there while they go walk through the factory and then decide if they're going to penalize somebody. People are over this, and they're tired of government being the obstacle to the way they live their lives and want to live their lives and the job they want to do.
Yeah. The thing that's interesting, by the way, when we started this this Congress, I was very interested how you guys would handle the nominees for President Trump. And I got to say, I've been really impressed with the teamwork, both the speed at which the nominees are getting through and the unity. And I just, before we move on, I want to get your take. Like, is this something that is just because it's President Trump, because you like the nominees? Is it a new day in the Senate because you have a new leader in John Thune? Like, I sort of, it hasn't really gotten a lot of attention, but I've been impressed with the unity of the Senate Republican Conference getting President Trump's nominees through.
And there was a process that was put in place, and I do give Leader Thune a lot of credit for this, and my colleagues in total, out of respect for President Donald Trump and the job he's doing. And you know, Sean, we started as the four of us that are the Committee on Committees, which assigns everyone in the Senate to their committees. We worked to get all of our designations and assignments done before Christmas. Thereby, our Republican conference was able to meet to ratify the membership of the committees, the chairman of the committees, approve our rules when we were sworn in on January 3rd. Leader Thune was able to move forward with the organizing resolution that allowed our committees to organize on January 6th, and the notices for hearings of nominees to begin going out that day. That allowed us to complete some of these hearings, many of the hearings, over half of them, before President Trump was sworn in. That allowed us to immediately move to the floor with confirmations that day. And that is why we're ahead of schedule. It has been well organized. Those of us at the Republican Leadership table with Leader Thune that are a part of that cabinet, we have put the emphasis on being precise with these. As a deputy whip with Senator Barrasso, who is our whip, we have, as soon as someone would get out of committee, we have whipped that vote. We've made certain that people are there to vote to confirm these nominees. And it is about teamwork. I think it's important to realize TEAM is an acronym. Together, everyone achieves more. And we have worked together as a team on behalf of our great president, Donald J. Trump.
It shows. And one of the people that you pulled over the line was Kash Patel, the FBI director.
That's right.
And I took notice that you already sent a request to him, asking him for the unredacted Epstein records, pushing for release of the flight logs, the little black book, the video surveillance footage. Why you? Like, what is it that concerns you about Epstein? Obviously, a lot of like icky stuff about Jeffrey Epstein, but what is it that you want to get out of this?
Yes, and this is not about celebrity or who is on the list.
I do. I want to know. I do. I mean, look, maybe not for you, but for me, I want to see who's on that list. I'm not saying any. I mean, I'm not guessing Bill Clinton.
Here's the reason I am wanting the files and the flight logs and the black book and the IRS records, all of it. And yes, indeed, I have worked with Director Patel and AG Bondi on this issue, and also Acting Director O'Donnell over at the IRS. Here is the reason why. Human and sex trafficking has grown to be a $150 billion a year industry. We know this. The records tell us this. It is global in nature. We know that Jeffrey Epstein had many ties in this industry and that he built this sex trafficking, human trafficking network. And we need to break this apart. It is modern day slavery. We have women and children whose lives are being destroyed. We have 300,000 migrant children that HHS and the Office of Refugee Resettlement have lost. They totally lost them. And it is imperative that we stop these trafficking rings, that we break this apart, that we hold these people accountable, that we apprehend these traffickers, that we lock them up, get them prosecuted. So this is why I have worked on this issue as the top Republican on the Human Rights Subcommittee at Judiciary Committee. I have worked on this issue for the last 2 years, and Christopher Wray was always going to get back to me about the Epstein files and flight logs and records.
But isn't that why? I mean, that's the thing. To your point, from a government, who was on the plane, but also the issue that you're exposing is massively important. Why would they block that? It begs the question, doesn't it? Why wouldn't you want to? Right. I just don't get it.
Right. And as then chairman of Judiciary, Dick Durbin, when we were issuing committee subpoenas, which, as you know, Judiciary Committee does on an ongoing basis, I submitted a subpoena for all of these records on Jeffrey Epstein, and rather than call that vote, we didn't issue any subpoenas. He adjourned the committee.
But Senator, don't you think that, I know I was joking about it partially, but like, it's got to be who's on the list. They're covering. That's got to be it. There's no reason. Of
course. Yeah. Of course. And because of that, you've got this massive global human trafficking, sex trafficking ring. Even the cartels are involved in this. They're saying they make more money by trafficking people than they're making from drugs. I mean, this is horrific. And of course, we have to break this apart. And
I'm glad you're championing it. Yeah, I mean,
yes,
look,
it requires the information.
Yeah. Well, Pam Bondi says it's on her desk. And so I hope we get that, because if we're not holding these people accountable, then, I mean, it's like a supply and demand thing, whether it's drugs or human trafficking. If you don't stop the demand and expose the people who are doing it, you're never going to stop it. I guess the question is, when you talk to these people, you got Patel, Bondi, and then the IRS commissioner, are they saying, hey, we'll get back to you? What's the response?
No, they are working with us. We know that you have to make certain victims are not going to be harmed, and we will get these records. It is a process. It is being done by the rule of law in the proper way, and I have all good faith in AG Bondi, Director Patel, Acting Director O'Donnell. We are going to find this out, and we are going to work to end all of this human and sex trafficking and end the ruinous activity on so many precious lives.
Well, there's a lot of people who owe you a debt of gratitude for keeping your foot on the gas on this, because I think a lot of people thought they were going to get away with it. They just didn't know that Marsha Blackburn was on their tail. So I appreciate
for two full years.
But that's it. I mean, but see, that's the thing. A lot of people give up. They get the letter. They get told, oh, I'm not getting the subpoena. You've been dogged on this. And that's what we need in Washington, whether it's spending, your work on China, all this stuff. If we don't, the debt, I mean, you've been a champion on all these issues, and that's the only way it happens in a town like this. So I appreciate your efforts on this, your tenacity on this, because we need more fighters like you in the Senate.
Well, I am so honored to be here, and I am so honored to be working to make certain we get President Trump's agenda across the finish line. Tennesseans are energized. Every weekend when I go home and I'm out at activities for the kids and the grandkids and at church, and I'll have people come up to me and they'll say, keep it going. Let's make certain that we send health care and education and benefits and all that back to the states. Let's get this out of DC. I think now, Sean, people really understand what the term drain the swamp is all about. And what we see, those gators are down there and they're chomping away. They are not happy.
It's a good point. It took a while to fully understand how bad it was,
Yes.
but he's done that. Senator, thank you for coming on with us and explaining what's going on and giving us some insight out of this. Always appreciate your time.
You got it. Take care.
You bet.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.